Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in from across the continent and beyond again for another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. We have a bevy of new folks in the audience today, so if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Everything we do goes through our YouTube channel, so you can catch this program and like 4,000 others in like 2 weeks, 2 years down the road, anytime you want to watch again. Lots to explore and discover there. And you're catching us in a very exciting day because we are continuing our epic month of February, which is our month that for 10 years now, since our inception, has been solely dedicated to the most badass women in science on planet Earth. We've got Egyptologists, paleontologists, coral reef biologists, a little bit of everything this month, and I hope you take the chance to check it all out on our YouTube channel. Register for more. We've got a lot of fun stuff on the go. But I'm very excited because today we are learning from Laura Lewis. She is an associate professor to be very soon, very exciting, finishing up her postdoc, which for any of you students in grade 9, that's like the last echelon of education that you can do before you get to teach everybody else all sorts of cool stuff. So Laura is like at the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm so happy for her personally. She started off in Berkeley. She went to North Carolina with our friends at the Duke Lemur Center, who we have on every single month, and her passion is primatology and the amazing cousins that we have in the animal kingdom, chimpanzees and bonobos. I know for me personally as a zoologist, Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall were huge inspirations growing up. There's some incredible work that's been done that really changed the face of biology in the primatology field. And so today, she's going to talk to us about her amazing work and specifically at the Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary, a place that I must admit I had never heard of till today. So I'm very excited to learn from Laura about all her amazing work. And with that, I'm going to stop talking. Laura, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and tell us your story. Take us away.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here. And hello to all of you in the classrooms and online. I'm so excited to talk with you about my work today, exploring chimpanzees at Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and get started and jump right in. So I want to start with a video, and hopefully this video will play for you. And when I play this video, I want you to think about what the animal in this video might be thinking.
He looks like the people that, like my cousin, looking into a camera for the first time. It's very exciting.
That's right. That's right. So I think what's very obvious to me in this video, and something I think that's exciting to show here, is what is very clearly happening is you can see something like curiosity, right? This is a wild chimpanzee living in a forest in Uganda, and he's come across a camera trap, which is a camera that we tie to trees in order to observe wild animals. And clearly, he's very curious about this camera trap. So curiosity is one thing that I study in chimpanzees and humans, and I compare curiosity in chimpanzees and humans. So that was one of the things I was studying on Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. But before I talk more about that, I want to just give a brief introduction to me as a scientist. So as a kid, we had a pet baby goat named the Kid. So you can see me here with our pet baby goat. I was about 3 years old, 4 years old. And this is one of my first memories, is having a pet baby goat. And I was blown away. I was so excited. I was so fascinated by this goat's behavior, what they were doing, what he was thinking, why he was eating random trash, why he would headbutt me to the ground. And then slowly over time, we became friends. And this is my first memory of really being curious about what an animal was doing, why it wanted to be friends with me, but then also would headbutt me, what it was eating, what it was thinking. So this was my first introduction to really thinking about other animals' minds. And from there, I've been studying a lot of other animals. So I studied lemurs at the Duke Lemur Center in college. And then also at Duke, I studied dogs and then chimpanzees. And at the same time, during my summers when I was in college, I traveled to South Africa and I would study chacma baboons in the wild. So I studied lemurs, dogs, chacma baboons, and chimpanzees. But it was for me, the chimpanzees that were super fascinating and super exciting. And I just absolutely fell in love with them. So I fell in love with bonobos and chimpanzees and knew that this is what I wanted to continue studying, and that this was something that I could imagine studying for the rest of my life. So then I went on to do my PhD at Harvard, studying the minds of great apes or chimpanzees and bonobos. So I'm really studying what they're thinking, what they could be thinking in their minds. Since they can't really talk to us, they can't talk to us at all, right? We have to come up with really fun, creative experiments or games that they might play in order to get at what they might be thinking in their minds. So that's the type of work that I do now. And next year, I'll be starting as an assistant professor at UC Santa Barbara, where I will continue this research with bonobos, chimpanzees, and human children. But I'll also be teaching and advising students and that sort of thing. So I'm really looking forward to this next step in my career. Okay, now I want to introduce you a little bit to primates. Some of you might be very familiar with primates, so this might be a refresher. Others of you might not know so much about primates, so I just want to introduce you to the world of primates. So you can see some of the primates here on the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to give you some just quick facts about what primates are. So primates often live a really long time. In fact, chimpanzees and bonobos live almost as long as humans do. Chimpanzees and bonobos can live to 60 or 70 years in the wild. So they have really long lives, and they also have really large brains. So most primates have very big brains compared to their body size. And it means they're really smart for the most part. Smart in different ways. Different primates have different abilities. But in general, we have really big brains compared to our body size, and we're quite smart. So all primates have 4 fingers on each hand and a thumb. This is really important. This is one of the key features of being a primate is, I don't know, I can't see all of you, but if you can put up your thumbs, your opposable thumbs, and give me a little wiggle.
Wiggle! I'm wiggling the thumbs, Laura.
So primates are the only animals on the planet that have these really amazing opposable thumbs that we can use for all sorts of things. Now, if you have a pencil on your desk, I want you to take your pencil and put it on your desk. And first thing I want you to do, stick up your thumbs and now put them down. And now I want you to try picking up your pencil only with your fingers, no thumbs. How does that go?
It's very hard.
You did pretty well.
Thank you.
It's a little tricky, right? Okay, now put up your thumbs and try picking up your pencil with your thumb. Much easier, right? So our opposable thumbs, as we know, do a lot of things for us. And as primates, we have these very special opposable thumbs. When you think about other animals like squirrels or raccoons or frogs, right? They don't have opposable thumbs. So they can't necessarily do all of the things that we can do with our opposable thumbs. Okay, next, another kind of weird feature is that we have fingernails instead of claws. So think about bears or raccoons or squirrels. They have these long claws. We have fingernails that are a little bit more delicate, but we can also use for certain types of things. And so that's another key feature of primates is that we have nails instead of claws. Okay, about 80% of primates are social, meaning that they live in families or in community groups. Now, for us, that makes total sense, right? As humans, we live in families, we have community groups, you have your community at your school, for example, but not all animals have community groups. For example, frogs, right? They don't necessarily live in groups, they might be solo, and lots of other animals are kind of solo in the wild. Whereas a lot of primates, the majority of primates live in families, communities, and social groups. Now, you can imagine for a lot of reasons that brings a lot of really positive effects, right? So when we live in groups, we are safer. We have a lot of different individuals to interact with, but it also comes with a lot of challenges as well, right? So it's kind of annoying sometimes to have to interact with your parents all the time, for example, or you might get in a fight with your friend, or you might have to communicate with someone that you've never met before, right? So living in these social communities and families and groups comes with a lot of advantages, advantages, but also comes with a lot of challenges. And this is some of what I study is what are some of the advantages of living in social groups and having close social relationships and friendships? And what are some of the challenges that we face and have to navigate when we live in groups and have to sit in a classroom with a lot of other people around us or meet strangers, for example? Okay. So primates also very importantly have what we call maternal care. So mothers take care of their offspring, often for years at a time. And sometimes some species even have paternal care, which means care from the father. So fathers also sometimes care for their young. And so maternal care, especially for chimpanzees and bonobos, lasts at least 5 years. So chimpanzees and bonobos their babies spend around 5 years with their mother, nursing, sleeping in her nest, being very close to her before they go off on their own. So this is a long time in the animal kingdom. This is a really long time to spend with mothers. So they get a lot of time with their mothers before going off on their own, just as we humans do, right? We also are cared for by our mothers or by caregivers for many, many years until we're able to grow up and be out in the world on our own. Okay, now I'll introduce you to, this is called a phylogenetic tree or an evolutionary tree, showing you the different groups of primates. So over here on the left, there are lemurs. Then we have monkeys of the Americas. So these are monkeys that live in Central and South America. Then we have monkeys of Africa and Asia. So these are monkeys that live in Africa and Asia. And then we have lesser apes. So these are smaller apes. These are apes that are called, for example, gibbons and siamangs. Gibbons are what you see here. And then we have great apes. So lemurs, so the main categories of primates are lemurs, monkeys, and apes. And that's one thing I really want you to take away from here is that we have 3 main categories of primates: lemurs, monkeys, and apes. It gets a little bit more complicated than that with tarsiers and some other strange groups, but for the most part, we have 3 main groups: lemurs, monkeys, and apes. Lemurs are one of the earliest evolved primates. So they evolved about 60 million years ago. So many, 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 many years ago. And then slowly over time, other monkey species evolved and spread across the world. But for the purposes of today's talk, I won't spend so much time talking about lemurs and monkeys, even though they're very cool. And I'll jump right into our great ape family. So now we're going to go leave these lemurs and these monkeys behind. We'll leave the lesser apes behind, and we'll jump right into our great ape family. And I say great ape family because that is the actual scientific term of our great ape group. So we are a great ape family. That's a scientific term. So we're in the kingdom of animals, Animalia, and we're in the family of great apes now. And this is what our great ape family looks like. These are the different primate groups in our great ape family. So we have orangutans over here on the left. These are big orange apes that live in Borneo and Sumatra in Asia. Next, we have gorillas. You probably all are familiar with gorillas. These are also huge apes. They're really, really, really big with giant heads. They beat their chest, they eat leaves, and they live in different parts of Central Africa. Of course, we as humans are great apes, so we are included in this family. We as humans are great apes. We are primates. And that's, I think, really important. Sometimes we get confused if we are primates or if we are great apes or not. We are primates and we are great apes. We're included in this great ape family. And then we have our closest living cousins, chimpanzees and bonobos. So we are very, very closely related to chimpanzees and bonobos. We share almost 99% of our DNA with them. We share 98.7% of our DNA with chimpanzees and bonobos. So we're extremely close to them. These are the closest living animals on the planet to us. There's no other animal on the planet that is closer to us than chimpanzees and bonobos. Now, I want to highlight something important here, and these are these different circles down here on the bottom of this phylogenetic tree. This represents a time at which we shared a last common ancestor with these apes. So if you think a last common ancestor, you can think of as like a great-great-great-grandma, right? Except this goes back millions of years. So we share a great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma or last common ancestor with orangutans that lived somewhere between 12 to 16 million years ago. We share a last common ancestor with gorillas that lived somewhere between 8 to 10 million years ago. And lastly, very importantly, we share a last common ancestor with chimpanzees and bonobos that lived somewhere between 5 to 7 million years ago. Now, 5 to 7 million years sounds like a ton of time, right? But our Earth has been around for billions of years, right? So actually, this is just a little blip in time in evolutionary history. So it means we're very, very closely related to them. Now, chimpanzees and bonobos are two different species, so they share a last common ancestor that lived between 1 to 2 million years ago. So they are very, very closely related. You can tell they look pretty similar here, right? But there's also some really interesting differences. And sometimes I compare chimpanzees and bonobos and the way they think to think about their similarities and differences in their psychology and what may have happened over the past 1 to 2 million years that has shaped their psychology in similar or differing ways to each other and then also to our own psychology. So most importantly, the biggest takeaway I want you to take away from this is that we do not come from any of these groups. We do not come from chimpanzees. We do not come from bonobos. We don't come from gorillas or orangutans. We come from an animal species that lived millions of years ago that is no longer alive. It's extinct. But that ancestor produced offspring, that produced offspring, that produced offspring. And now we have these different great ape cousins living on Earth that are related to us, but we don't come from them. So that's a common misconception. So I just kind of want to introduce you to that idea that we don't come from any living animal on Earth. We come from ancient ancestors that lived a long time ago that are now extinct, that produce offspring, and now we have these cousins on Earth. Now, the last thing I want to say about these species is that they are all heavily endangered, especially chimpanzees and bonobos. They are very, very endangered. In fact, there's only about 20,000 bonobos left living in the wild. It is thought that they may go extinct in our lifetime. And I want you to think about that a little bit. These are our closest living animal cousins on Earth. But they might go extinct in our lifetime. They might not live in the wild in 50 years. And that's for a variety of different reasons. A big one is deforestation. So in the areas where they live, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's a lot of deforestation, meaning cutting down of forests in those areas. It means that these bonobos no longer have habitats or places to live, and it's contributing to the decline of this population. So there's a number of other things that are happening. One other big thing that's happening is the pet trade. So baby bonobos especially, they are very cute, but they are often wanted as pets. And so that means that the parents are killed, the babies are taken as pets from the wild, and then they're sold around the world as pets. Now, you can imagine that obviously definitely contributes to the declines of this population. But also, I want you to note, if you ever see primates, monkeys, or apes as pets, I want you to know that they're really, really, really not happy. And that's because they're taken out of, as we talked about before, their communities, their family groups, right? They live in groups with up to 150 other individuals. These are their communities. And when they're taken away from them, imagine how you might feel if you're taken away from your community and placed into a cage with no one else around. Right? That's what sometimes happens with these animals. So it's really important that we fight back against trying to bring primates into the pet trade as pets and keep them in the wild, in their communities where they are the happiest. Okay, now I want to give you a little more information about chimpanzees and bonobos. So I study chimpanzees at this sanctuary. It's called Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. This is an island in the middle of Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is a giant lake in the middle of Africa. It's the 5th largest lake in in the world. It feels like an ocean when you're on it. It's huge. It's absolutely ginormous. And there's this tiny, small, remote island in the middle of Lake Victoria. And the entire island is a chimpanzee sanctuary. So what you're seeing here, this entire island is a sanctuary for chimpanzees. Now, there are 53 chimpanzees living on this island. They were rescued as orphans for one reason or another, as we talked about before. They're chimpanzee orphans, and they're rescued and brought to this island to be rehabilitated. So there are 53 rescued orphan chimpanzees living on this island. They're all different ages, ranging from 6 months old to, I think, about 50 years old. So there's a huge age range here. And I'll show you this video in one moment, but what I want to point out here is that this is where the humans on the island live. There are about 12 caretakers that live on the island. So this is where the humans live. And then the rest of the island, humans are not allowed to go to the rest of this island. It's only for the chimpanzees. So the chimpanzees get to roam and explore in this forested area. And then, importantly, at night, they have the option to come back to the sleeping room. So these are these sleeping enclosures that you can see here, this rectangle building. This is their sleeping enclosures where the chimpanzees have the option to sleep. One fun thing about the sleeping enclosure is that the chimpanzees get hammocks to sleep in here. And these hammocks are woven out of grass made by women in the local fishing villages. So there are some fishing villages on these other islands. The women collect grass and weave hammocks for the chimps. And then at the sanctuary, we buy these hammocks and set them up for the chimps to sleep in at night, which they love. Now, one thing I really love about this sanctuary is that the chimpanzees have a choice. They can choose to come back and sleep in this sleeping building if they want at night, or they can choose to stay out in the forest and sleep in the forest at night. So usually every night, about 10 chimpanzees choose to stay out in the forest and sleep in the forest at night, and the rest come back and sleep in the sleeping enclosure. Then in the morning, most of the chimpanzees are let back out into the forest. We keep about 15 chimpanzees for about an hour, and we get to do research with them. Now, very importantly, this research is non-invasive, which means not harmful to the animals at all. It's completely voluntary, so they can decide to come up to our experiment station and play some games with us or not. It's completely up to them. If they do come and play some games, it usually takes only about 5 minutes, and then they're let back out into the forest for the rest of the day. So we set up little games for them to play. It's completely not harmful at all to them. They typically like it because they often will get a little reward, like some peanuts or a little bit of juice, and then they go out to the forest and spend the rest of the day in the forest. So now I'll play and play this video, show you what it looks like. So this is an aerial view of the island. You can see the chimpanzee sleeping enclosure is that little rectangle. And you can see the rest of the forested island. So the chimpanzees are given food 3 times a day. They get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But they can also find food out in the forest. So they can be out in the forest and exploring for food on their own as well. There's some fruits out there, as you can see. But they also, the caretakers on the island also give them some food so that everyone has enough. Now, there are baby chimps on the island. There are adult chimps on the island. They're often playing together. They climb trees. And as you can see, there's tons of bugs. I don't know if you notice those flies, but there's lots and lots and lots of different really cool bugs. There are huge trees. There you can see some more of those bugs, some lake flies. Sometimes we go out off the island on a boat, and we can feed the chimpanzees, give them food from the water. And then sometimes they'll actually come out into the water to get that food. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through these questions to ask when observing primates. So these are just to put in your mind some questions to ask when observing primates. So when we're just observing primates in their natural habitat, one question is, how big is the group or community that you see? What types of activities are they doing? So for example, you could see some chimpanzees eating in the last video. Here are some baboons that are grooming each other. One question is, are there different types of individuals present? Are there infants, juveniles, adults? So you can see here, there's an adult present. And then this is also an infant baboon present. So, and here's another infant baboon present next to an adult. What food might be available to them that you see? Are they experiencing any visible or invisible stressors? Do they have any sort of injuries, for example? Are they experiencing any conflicts with humans? This is something we often think about is, do primates in the wild, do they experience conflicts with humans? What similarities, and this is really important to my research, what similarities do we observe between humans and non-human primate behavior? How do they communicate? So you can see a baboon here making a vocalization. So all primates make different types of vocalizations, and a lot of them make different gestures in order to communicate with one another. What types of social relationships do they have? So we talked about mothers with their babies, but especially chimpanzees and bonobos, they also have long-term friendships. They have dominance hierarchies where some individuals are dominant to others. So they have lots of different varied social relationships. One thing I like to observe a lot is if there's anyone on the outskirts of the group. So sometimes in these big communities, there might be primates on the outskirts of this group. So I find it really interesting to think about what that primate might be doing, how they might be feeling, whether they might be trying to re-enter the group, and if there's any large conflicts. So just like us as humans who sometimes have arguments and disagreements and conflicts with other humans, primates also have conflicts as well that they need to resolve. And so sometimes you can actually observe this when observing primates. And then lastly, can you spot the dominant males? So most primates have dominant males in the group. These are often bigger individuals. And so sometimes it's pretty easy to spot these dominant males. I want to point out, though, that bonobos are actually what we call female dominant. So the females are dominant in bonobo groups. And often female bonobos will team up together, form what we call coalitions or teams with each other, and beat up the males if they're acting out of line. So that's one special case in which we have female dominance in bonobos, one of our closest living cousins. Okay, now I want to show you, let's see how we're doing on time. Perfect. Okay, I wanted to just show you a few videos that I think you'll find interesting. These are all from the Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary. If you see these lines here, this is a fence that keeps us separate between the chimpanzees and the humans, so the chimpanzees have their own safe area. And this is a chimpanzee named Easy. He was rescued as a pet. Uh-oh, for some reason it's not playing.
It wants to work. It's thinking about it, Laura.
It's thinking about it. I don't know why it's not playing. Let's see. Okay. Well, I'll just go on. Let's see to the next video.
Something has to go wrong in every video call. Otherwise, it's no fun. This one works perfectly.
This one works perfectly? Great. Let's play this.
Great. Yeah.
This is Bali, and he is playing. And I want you to recognize to see if you see any kind of similar behaviors that we might do as humans with our babies.
No, it's okay.
Bali was 3 years old in this video. He's pretty young. And he's playing with Kaza. That's not his mom, actually. He's not related to Kaza at all. But Kaza loves playing with Bali.
But if I touch it and I get...
Here's another video. Now this is Bali playing with Temtem. Bali again is 3 here and Temtem is 5. Oh no, this one also isn't playing for some reason. Okay, we'll move on. Let's see here. This is also Bali. And this is what we call playing airplane, which of course we do as humans with our babies, right? As we play airplane. So I want you to notice how similar they are to us, right? How they can be tender, silly, playful, gentle with each other, doing a lot of behaviors that we as humans do. Okay. Here's some more playing. I want you to notice if you see other individuals and what they might be doing.
No, I don't have a battery left.
And I think all of us can notice, right, that they aren't fighting here, that they are playing, right? And I want you to notice what might be some clues that help you understand that they're playing and not fighting.
Just that sense of nonchalance and not worrying about it, and there's no aggression. It's so clear, and I mean it's clear in a lot of mammals, but you really see it comparative to humans and in other great apes. It's just magnificent.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we use a lot of different clues to determine that they're playing, right? You can tell that they're not being super aggressive, that they're being pretty gentle with each other, that they might be biting each other a little bit or smacking each other a little bit. But actually recently some research was published that showed that chimpanzees do tease each other. So they actually do teasing things like annoying each other or poking each other with sticks or pulling each other's hair. So they tease each other just like we as humans do. And they play in a lot of ways just as we humans do. And the last thing I'll say is that they also do what we call a play face. So sometimes if you have a pet dog, you'll sometimes do something like, right? And they know that that's a play face, that you're trying to play with them. Well, chimpanzees also do the same thing. Let's see if I can show you Bali's play face. If I can skip ahead here. So you can see here, let's see if he pops his head up. Yeah, I missed it.
This
He's getting a little beat up here, so maybe you can't see his play face. But a play face in chimpanzees is open eyes, open mouth, big expression. It's different from an aggressive face where they're showing more of their teeth. But they do play faces as well. So that also is a clue that, hey, we're playing, we're not fighting here. Okay. So with that, just in the interest of time, I want to say thank you so much to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and to all of my mentors who have supported my research and all of the things that I'm exploring with chimpanzees. And now with the time we have left, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Laura. That was a ton of fun. It's really interesting to see Richard Wrangham on that list too. He's one of my favorite authors of one of my favorite books in the series of all time. So very cool.
Oh, wonderful. He was one of my PhD advisors.
Amazing. Small world again. Well, we are going to dive in with Q&A. So Holy Family School, we're going to come to you for a bevy in just a second. Put those thinking caps on. YouTubers, you've already shared a bevy, which is great. So our first one, Laura, and take a sip. It helps after a 30-minute talk. So our Caesar in Nicaragua wanted to know, what's the biggest hunter for primates other than people? So we've caused a lot of their problems, but is there anything else that takes them out in the wild?
That's a really great question. Yes, one of the biggest hunters is leopards. So leopards hunt, especially baby primates. Leopards will hunt baby primates, but sometimes they'll even go for adults. But that's a really great point. But the biggest hunter of primates are humans. So humans are exactly. That's a great question.
Great question, Caesar. Yes, another one we had is how long you're in the field. So when you've gone and done these journeys, how many days are you there? Is it weeks? How do you get there? Like a little bit of the logistics of what it's like to actually get to the field and spend time there.
Sure. So it really depends on the different field site that I may be going to. When I was in South Africa, I was in the field for 3 months. When I go to Ngamba Island Chimpanzee Sanctuary, I go for about 6 weeks. And I'm actually preparing to go back April 1st. So I'll be going back in 2 months, which is very exciting. And I'll tell you what, the process I'm in now is getting all of my vaccinations. So I have to have a rabies vaccination, a yellow fever vaccination. So the very first step is making sure that I'm protected against any sicknesses I may encounter there. I take malaria medication as well to make sure that I don't get malaria while I'm there. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm preparing some project ideas that I'll actually run once I'm there.
Ooh, very exciting. And hey, if you're in the field and you've got a connection, you want to do one live from Uganda, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. That would be very cool. I actually don't have a lot of Wi-Fi there. So the connection is very little.
We'll have you when you're back.
Yeah.
We're going to head to our Holy Family School live. If you guys want to come on up to the camera, you are good to go. Hey, everybody.
Hi. I was wondering, what's the biggest difference between a human and a chimpanzee?
Very good.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. personally, I think one of the biggest differences is the complex language that we as humans have. So chimpanzees do have a language of their own. They vocalize in all sorts of ways. They can make combinations of vocalizations, and they also gesture. So something like this, if a chimpanzee does this, it means please groom me right here. So they do have their own sort of language, but we as humans have incredibly complex language. So we are very expressive, and importantly, we can talk about things not just in the present, but also in the past and the future. So scientists think that this may help us think in critically different ways from chimpanzees, that we can talk about years or millions of years in the future, or millions or billions of years in the past, right? We can think about things that are not just here in the present, and we can talk about them. One other thing that I think is fun in terms of language is that we can talk about each other, right? So we could gossip, we can say, hey, they did that bad thing, or hey, they found that cool restaurant, right? So we can kind of talk about each other, talk about different ideas that I think chimpanzees even though they do have their own language, it's not as complex as ours. So I think that's one big major difference, I would say.
I was really wondering what you were going to take as that answer, and that's a really, really good one. And one thing for our students in our classes today, like chimpanzees are capable of remarkable feats of intelligence, but they can't really build off of epic things that other chimpanzees have learned all over the world. Whereas you in your class right now are learning like the whole sum of human knowledge for all time. And you're learning that over the next few years. So like, that's very exciting. That allows us to build like nuclear power plants, or, go to the moon, or do any number of things that, as smart as chimpanzees may be, they don't have that ability to build on that knowledge and communicate with one another. So that's a really neat answer, Laura. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holy Family School, there's a bunch of you that were keen on questions. So I'm going to head back to you guys, and then we'll take a couple more from YouTube before we wrap up. But if you want another one in Ontario, take us away. Hey, guys.
Hi, Malia. Go up to the camera.
Come on up.
Yeah, we have another question.
Lovely.
This one? There you go.
What happens when a chimpanzee gets hurt?
Oh, go down.
Ooh.
That's a great question. That's a really great question. Thank you for the question. What happens when a chimpanzee gets hurt? Well, first of all, it depends on the size of the injury. But I'll say one thing, which is that they are very attentive to their injuries. So let's say they may scrape a tree at a branch and get a scrape. The first thing that they do is that they lick their injury a lot. You often, if you have a pet dog or cat, you'll see the same thing. If they get an injury, they'll lick it a lot. This is to clean the wound, and it's thought that their saliva may actually protect them in a lot of ways from that wound getting infected. So first thing they'll do is they'll clean their wound. The other fascinating thing that we see in primates is that other individuals are interested in that injury. So other chimpanzees will come and inspect the injury. They may wonder what's going on. They may be curious about that injury. They may also lick it as well. So we see that other chimpanzees will likely notice that injury and come and attend to it as well. The last thing I'll say is that chimpanzees heal very quickly. It's very surprising. And I think as scientists, we don't know exactly all of the mechanisms that help chimpanzees heal super quick. But sometimes they can get really big injuries when they fight with each other. And, they can have a huge gash in their face that heals within 2 months. And it's amazing to see how quickly they can heal as well. So that's kind of gives you a few steps of their injury process.
What a cool answer, Laura. This is great. You're a lot of fun. Time flies and you're having fun. So we are nearing the end of the broadcast. I'm going to share one more question from our YouTube friends, and then we'll wrap up from there. But perfect. Laura, this might be an easy one. It might be a really hard one. Is there a favorite part of your job? Is there something that gets you up in the morning? Is it going to the field? Is it stuff back at home? Is it sharing with kids? Tell us more.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that's very hard to answer. I have so many different favorite parts of my job, but I will say being in the field and sitting watching chimpanzees and observing all of the different complex things that they do and trying to make sense of what they might be doing, what they might be thinking, that is my absolute favorite part of the job. Getting to watch our grade 8 cousins go about their lives, interact with one another, have these deep, complex friendships where sometimes they might fight with their friends and they might hold grudges against their friends, and they have all this social drama. Getting to observe that, it is such a privilege. It is definitely one of my favorite parts of my job. And I feel very lucky to be able to do that every year. And then, of course, I love talking with classrooms. I love talking with students and hearing the different things that you all are thinking about and the questions that you're asking. So I would encourage you to keep asking questions, keep thinking about the different animals in our world, our great ape cousins, and how we might be able to best protect them as we continue forward.
No better message than that. Thank you so much, Laura. This has been a lot of fun. I want to stress for our kids, if you want to learn more about Laura, she's got a great website here. The Chimpanzee Sanctuary has a website as well, so you can check out more about that. And if you're keen on some great books to inspire you maybe, and this might be for some of our older students too, but In the Shadow of Man by Jane Goodall still really holds up. It's a spectacular lead into chimpanzee behavior and more. And a really recent book is Vanishing Treasures by Catherine Rundle, which is my favorite conservation book of all time. So if you're keen on really cool animals and getting excited about them, I can't recommend that enough. Laura, before we say farewell and bring in our class to say a big thank you and goodbye, is there any last message you want to leave with about primatology, about the amazing work you do, the sanctuary, anything before we say farewell?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that if you are passionate about nature at all, any type of science related to nature, to animals, to our climate, I would just highly encourage you to keep following that dream and following that passion. Look out for the adults in your life who may be really supportive, right? Because you will find them, teachers, maybe your parents, other caregivers who are excited about the things that you're excited about. And I was very lucky myself to have adults in my life who supported my passion. I had no idea that I could study chimpanzees as a job, that this could be my lifelong job. And now here I am. So even if it's not a job that you even know about, if you want to study slugs and snails, you can do it. Look out for the people in your life that are supporting you. And I just want to myself encourage you and support you. It is so important to study animals, the other animals that we share this planet with. It is so important to study our climate, to understand how we may save our planet and save our other animal cousins from going extinct and being endangered. So just keep chugging along if you are passionate about any of these things. And I'm always happy to chat. My email inbox is always open in case you have more questions or want to chat more.
Laura, that is magnificent. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really loved having you, and I hope you have a magnificent time on Expedition starting on April 1st. As we do to wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in our live class, and if you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell and annoy the principal too, please do. Holy Family School, thank you so much, guys, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye for now, everyone. See y'all soon.